This week, we travel into a tome that takes us into galactic conflicts and planetary battles inside towering armored suits with MechWarrior. 10,000 years of organized warfare have culminated in that fabrication of arms and armor, of mobility and strength, called the battle mech. The typical mech stands 10 to 12 meters tall. Vaguely humanoid, it is an armored giant of myth and legend come to life. The lightest weigh 20 tons, the heaviest 75 tons or more. Even the smallest mech bristles with lasers, particle cannons, long and short-range missile launchers, autocannon, or machine guns, which make it striding, thundering death for any unarmored army silly enough to stand and fight. Well, howdy, and hello. That's the most southern thing that I say, if I ever say it, is howdy.
Howdy. It is. You come down here, you're going to learn that word.
Well, my dad used to use it a lot, so my dad is a cowboy at heart.
Was he joking around when he did it, or was he, serious, or?
No, he'd just say it.
Oh, okay. Well, we're not really talking about cowboys today, though, or?
No, we're talking about the exact opposite. Well, I mean, you might call him a cowboy of a type, but no, we're talking about battle mech pilots.
Oh, yeah. We are today talking about MechWarrior.
Yes, MechWarrior.
Which?
Not the video games.
No.
The old RPG.
And it's kind of weird because they're all tied together because of the Battletech, umbrella.
The universe.
I'm kind of excited about this property because this is maybe next to, the old Greyhawk game from Gary Gygax. This might be either my first or second RPG that I ever personally owned.
Oh my goodness.
I was thinking about that and I was like, this might be the one that I own because Dungeons & Dragons did not come into the house with my parents.
Right.
That was something I could play other places. Greyhawk didn't sound so menacing, but Dungeons & Dragons was not allowed.
Yeah.
I got into this game when I was pretty young. I guess I would say maybe around 10 or 11 years of age in Plano, Texas. And it came out from FASA, which FASA, and the typeface they even use for the name, it does sound like NASA, and it looks like NASA as far as the logo goes.
Yeah, and that was something, because what did you say it stood for?
Fredonian Aeronautical Space Administration.
Agency or administration. So it is. It's really just a play on NASA.
Yeah.
It's always odd when I hear people say FASA because the way, which shouldn't be because NASA, you're right, is the same. I didn't even make that correlation, so that shows how dense I was on it. But I've always, when I see it, I read it FASA. Yeah. Because it's in all caps. Mm-hmm. So I don't assume that they're trying to make it a word. But yeah, if it's like NASA, then yeah.
Yeah. So. I wonder what they were thinking when they named their company that. I mean, they just might have been really cool guys and kind of joking around because...
Did they not have an origin found on...
Not really. I mean, other than Fredonia, which is the name of the make-believe country for the Marx Brothers in the movie Duck Soup.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, because there's a college or something also. The Fredonia.edu is the State University of New York at Fredonia. They are the Blue Devils. See, when you said it earlier to me, you said Fredonia. I was thinking of, for some reason, it popped into my head, Knights of Fredonia. But I think I was thinking of the Muse song. I think it's Knights of Sidonia.
Oh.
Which is a pretty awesome song.
Yeah, no, I don't know. But that was the origin story that I found, was that it was related to the Marx Brothers.
That's the only origin that you could find?
That's the only origin I could find. And when I look back, and we're probably going to talk about FASA a few times on this show, because there are several franchises that started there. Big franchises. I mean, Battletech is a big franchise. Mm-hmm. Shadowrun started there. That's a big franchise. Earth Dawn started there. That's a pretty good franchise. It hasn't gone away. It's still around. And there are a couple others that a few of our listeners have recommended, and their origins date back to FASA. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's a company that, it's kind of weird. The original company is no longer around. It made games from the 80s till the 2000s. And then the name came back, and there's another company out there now called FASA Games. It's not just called FASA Interactive or anything like that. It's actually called FASA Games. And they were launched in the last decade.
Oh, but they're not associated?
They are associated. They have all these
I thought it was like a
plans.
descendant.
It's one of those things where I'm wondering if we are almost.
Are they not doing Traveler? Didn't they do Traveler?
They did Traveler during some iteration, but Traveler is right now with Mongoose, and Mongoose actually had a Kickstarter not that long ago for relaunching it yet again.
Okay, this here does say that Fredonia was probably first used by Americans immediately after the American Revolution in place of the demonym American. Freedonians.
Interesting.
The term Fredonia was later popularized by the 1933 Marx Brothers movie Duck Soup. But then, farther down in fiction, later works of fiction, it does list the American game publisher FASA's name was originally supposed to stand for Fredonian Aeronautics and Space Administration. In their first publication, a set of Starship deck plans for the game Traveler, the accompanying introduction was signed Rufus T. Firefly Director. In the Sierra Entertainment PC game Quest for Glory 2, Trial by Fire, the character Ali Chica is a parody of Chico Marx. If a non-player character is asked about Ali Chica after his disappearance, the player is told that he went to Fredonia.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing. I love the Quest for Glory series from Sierra. Those were such great games. Oh, I could almost
So now
wax on about those. Sierra, love you. Sierra, thank you for coming back.
Now we've linked it to two things that John loves, because I'll be 100% honest. I knew nothing about Battletech until I didn't even know it existed until I married or met John. And him and our housemate Sam constantly, if it comes up, they will talk about Robotech, and they'll talk about Battletech, and they'll talk about all this stuff that they love about these mech pilots and these mech warriors, and I just nod and smile. And
well, it's a big part of our childhood, and I think that because of FASA and how a lot of us grew up with gaming, I wonder if we are still the core audience for this as far as the role-playing games and tabletop game goes. But MechWarrior launched in 1986. It was a role-playing game based off of Battletech, which was 1984.
And was a board game.
Yeah. Well,
it's considered a board game.
It's considered a board game because it came in a box. It had maps. It was not a tabletop, use a measuring tape, move your characters across the board like a war game. It was actually like, here's spaces your characters move to. So I think that's the distinction that was made. I would still largely consider Battletech in of itself to be a war game, even though you're not moving tons of armies around. But that's just me,
That's an interesting, because when I think of wargaming, I think of hordes.
Yeah.
Just hordes and armies of figurines.
Yep. And when I was a kid, I actually had this dream, just tossing this out there. My dad and I made train sets. We made train dioramas and everything else. And I always wanted to take a hexagonal map and make a train map for Battletech, where it would have the train running through it, but it would have the hexagons so that the battle mechs could move around it.
Yeah.
That tells you how much this game meant to me.
Yeah.
Growing up.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'm looking here at some of our pop culture and political headlines that were going on in 1986, and we have the serious ones. I'll get to the one that made me kind of chuckle, because this is the closest thing to battle mechs that I ever. But looking at it, I remember it's a connection that my brain makes. But we have here the Iran-Contra affair. We have Desmond Tutu becomes the first black Anglican bishop. The Challenger tragedy in early 1986 when the space shuttle carrying Krista McAuliffe, essentially exploded.
NASA and FASA, big things in that year.
First Hispanic astronaut launched into space on the space shuttle Columbia. New Kids on the Block debuted, as well as Master of Puppets by Metallica and Two Live Crew debuted their first album. But it was also the year of Top Gun, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Labyrinth, Highlander, and Aliens. which includes my BA battle mech moment when Ripley is in
that
the
loader.
cargo loader. And yeah, I know it's not a battle mech, but man,
Might as well be.
she uses that machine to what is her line? I don't even know if I can say it because we're PG-13, but that's my favorite line.
Yeah, to get away from her, you be.
Yeah, you be. And it's other trivia. I'm pretty sure that that's the exact line that Molly Weasley says in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows when she zaps Beatrix Lestrange because she's trying to Avada Kedavra Ginny.
Yeah, and
I'm
there's
pretty sure she says that exact same thing, and so I'm like, yes.
But at least 2 of those movies are without a doubt to this day, many people would put them on their essential nerddom lists with Aliens and Labyrinth.
Yeah, if Aliens isn't on your nerddom list, get out of here. It doesn't even, I don't even think Aliens counts as a nerd movie. That movie is scary. It's great. I love Aliens. It's the reason I hate spiders. Facehuggers, but anyhow. Yeah. But so 86, I was 2.
You were 2.
How old were you? You were what, almost 9?
I was almost 9, and that was my family's first.
No, you were 9, because you're born in 76, right? I always think you're born in 77.
That's December. So
you were going to be 10. You were 9 all the year.
But that was also our first family trip to go to Disney World.
Oh.
So that was a big year for me. I still remember 86 Disney World. Yes.
I was not traveling yet. Traveling to school or to preschool. But so.
But give an idea of when this game came out. And I wonder if people, because like Ferris Bueller was a huge part of my life. I wonder if people think Ferris Bueller and really date this game.
See, 86, I had no idea that for some reason it doesn't feel like Ferris Bueller's Day Off came out in 86, nor does it feel like Top Gun came out in 86. I'm not a Top Gun fan. I think they're making a sequel. Did it take them 30 years to make a sequel?
I don't know. I wouldn't doubt it, but I actually like that movie, but at the same time, it is seriously a bro movie.
No, I don't consider Top Gun a bro movie. I feel like Top Gun has become
Goose and Tom Cruise moments, the interaction and discussions between Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise.
This has nothing to do with...
You could be my wingman anytime.
No, battle mechs. But see, I think it's become a chick flick.
Really?
I think Top Gun is laughable by bros today.
Really?
I think they look at it and they're like, how corny is this? There's nothing cool about this. But I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, but no.
We can agree to disagree on that one. It's not political.
Yeah. But so 86, and it did come out of the 1984 Battletech.
This is a huge franchise. I mean, this is 30, 40-year franchise with products out the wazoo. I mean,
yeah, that's one thing that I did notice when I was kind of doing some cursory research was it's everywhere. And I didn't realize that the MechWarrior video games were also associated, and that the MechCore place was actually supposed to be in the same universe or whatever. But it's years, bigger than I anticipated.
Dave & Buster's for years used to have mech pods where you could go and pilot the mechs at their Dave & Buster's locations. That was part of their shtick when they were first around. I don't think they do it anymore, but
I don't think we saw any mech pods when we were there.
Yeah.
But we do have here in Houston. We have a MechCore location where we can go, and they actually go to all the cons or a lot of cons.
They do, and they bring their pods with them, and people love it. And who can blame them? I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
MechWarrior, coming out from FASA. I think it was 3 games that came out from FASA.
The first 3 RPG books were released by FASA. And so you had the MechWarrior Battletech role-playing game, first edition, came out in 86.
Yeah.
The second edition came out in 91.
Second edition was in 91.
Which you have...
Yes.
You have materials for the original 1991 boxes.
Yeah, that's the box set that I have. And then there was third edition MechWarrior, which was 1999, which was the final one that they were, no, I wouldn't say involved with. That was the final one with their logo and their release.
Okay.
Because what's always been claimed is that the creator of MechWarrior or Battletech, to some extent, has always followed the franchise wherever it went.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's exactly true, but that's something that I've heard out there.
Yeah. It's interesting to me how many... so WizKids picked it up and released the next game under the FanPro moniker, which was the classic Battletech RPG, came out in 2007. And it says here the name was changed to avoid confusion with their MechWarrior Dark Age game, which was a clicks-based game. So if you're familiar with HeroClix or any of the other clicks, it was a clickable base game.
Which is WizKids and FanPro. That is pretty much what I think FanPro has become really known for. Other than, collectible memorabilia storage, they have become really known for the clicks games.
Right.
I mean, there are leagues, aren't there, where there are people that...
Is FanPro still a thing?
I believe FanPro is still a thing. FanPro is the parent company, and WizKids is underneath it.
Okay, well...
Or is it the other way?
WizKids
or was it the other way around?
I thought WizKids was part of Wizards of the Coast. Am I wrong?
No, they are separate companies.
Well, ignore me, folks.
Well, now, but that does bring up a good question. Were they separate companies? Because Wizards of the Coast put out the collectible card game of Battletech. Yes, there was a collectible card game of Battletech by the company that put out Magic the Gathering. So could WizKids be tied to Wizards of the Coast?
I thought it was, but it doesn't look like it is. Well, it used to be Topps.
Yes. Yep.
So, and then Topps announced it was shutting down WizKids in 2008, but it looks like it popped back up, so...
They probably sold the property elsewhere, but that Topps, as far as I know, is still around because they, to this day, still own the license, and they lease it out to companies. Now they don't... I should rephrase that a little bit. They own the license to the role-playing game and the tabletop RPG portion of it.
Oh, okay.
Because... that's something we'll discuss in just a bit, is like the video games. But yeah, WizKids put out classic Battletech RPG in 2007. And today, like the game, if you go to Gen Con or you go to any of the big conventions and you see the stuff for Battletech or MechWarrior, it's usually held by Catalyst. And Catalyst obtained the rights. They leased the rights from Topps to put out the game. They did a great beta release, which is still available out there for free on the internet at DriveThruRPG.
Okay.
You can actually obtain the beta release of this, and it's called A Time of War, and it came out in December of 2010. They have been still producing material for it. Right, yeah. I mean, as of this year, 2017, in July, they put out a new Battle Mech manual.
Yeah, and the manuals are pretty awesome. Oh, I guess you have a tech guide.
Yeah, I have a tech guide. This
or whatever
manual,
it's called.
I have not obtained the new manual yet.
Is the manual
really
like an operations manual?
It looks like it's an operation.
That's neat.
And so I'm very curious about it, and I would love to get my hands on it. That's a goal here at some point. Warrior is a very elusive game for me. It's almost a game I expect to become, for me, a convention game where I will track down somebody playing it and get in on a table of it at some point. Because by and large, getting a group, I don't see it at RPG shops or your friendly local gaming stores. Mm-hmm. Usually they don't have this out. This is not one of their big items.
Right.
It's to me, it's a fairly elusive game in that way. You're not going to find it on Roll20. You're not going to find it on Fantasy Realms.
Yeah.
These aren't things that are being ran on on what is becoming the new media. Mm-hmm. I doubt. Now, I hear that there was somebody who did a Twitch stream of it for a while.
Oh, interesting.
There's actually a Twitch stream of the game, and I would love to look up that.
Then I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't seen some sort of a renaissance, but it looks like it's really never gone away, and it looks like even while we're talking about the RPG, the fact that it has a continuing line of video games based in the universe, people are still playing. I mean, but you also have other things like Titanfall.
Oh, yeah.
Pacific Rim, where you're in these mech pilots. You know, I know that those aren't in the same universe, but I mean, there's still an interest in it, and it's just a shame that, for whatever reason, we're not seeing, because I've never seen it in a game shop.
Yeah. Robotech, Macross, I mean, when you think about all the things out there that are pop culture that are mech, even like in the last 2 months from of when we have recorded this, but in the last 2 months, there was the competition between the Japanese mech and the American mech, where the two, people took a year or two and built mechs and did a battle.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, you can go and watch it on YouTube. And the hope is that maybe that will turn into something more, which to me reminds me of another property that MechWarrior did called Solaris 7, which is this planet in the universe of Battletech where the pilots all come together to compete in competitions. There are stables like in sumo. There's always the Japanese elements in this game to some extent, because I think that was a hot thing in the 80s. But there were stables that people would join, and you'd work your way through the stables, getting into better ones. You were working for fan recognition, all these cool elements. But ultimately, it was a competition to see who was the best. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of reminds me of this a little bit.
Sorry, I was reading the Megabots thing that I mentioned, and it's what you're talking about.
Ah, okay.
It's Megabots challenged Japan to a duel. In the summer of 2015, Megabots Incorporated completed construction of the USA's first giant piloted mech. The Mark II Megabot is a 15-foot tall, 12,000-pound robot capable of hurling 3-pound projectiles at speeds of over 130 miles per hour. Upon completion of the Mark II, Megabots challenged the only other known giant piloted robot in the world to a duel, a 9,000-pound robot known as Kuritas, created by a group in Japan known as Suidobashi Heavy Industries. I probably butchered that. But they accepted, and their response was that they would accept only if they could do melee combat as well. And their quote from Kogoro Kurata is, "Just building something huge and sticking guns on it, it's super American. If we're going to win this, I want to punch them to scrap and knock them down to do it." And so, yes, they crowdfunded it, and in October, history was made as they dueled.
And it was interesting to watch.
Well, and I'll say, I thought for some reason that they were remote controlled. Yeah, I didn't think somebody was actually in them.
They were piloted, and they did put out a poll after the show to ask, should they go ahead and make them non-piloted, or is it better to have them piloted? I think you could increase the action and the danger to the things if they were unpiloted, because there were several times during the competition where they would pause and they'd take a break to check everything out.
Yeah, well, you don't want the thing. I mean, especially
you don't want people getting hurt, even in a competition.
Especially if they're chucking 3-pound projectiles at 130 miles per hour, somebody could get seriously injured or dead. So,
I don't think they actually used that cannon for this competition.
Not,
they actually put like what looked like a paintball Gatling gun on there.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, it sounds cool. It sounds like it would be a really neat thing. So, check it out. Make your own decision about that.
Yeah. So that's the closest thing that we have in real life.
In this gaming universe of Battletech and MechWarrior, there's a lot of opportunity to take on different roles because it's a very, very expansive universe with an incredibly detailed timeline. Starting off with what was, the fall of something called the Star League, all the way through what's called the Clan Wars, even further along, and these are timelines of hundreds of years as each one of these things. Yeah,
because
place.
I know there is material out to document history from, I believe, the late 20th century all the way to the mid 32nd.
Yeah, and you can play as characters roughly. I mean, with a good GM, you can play with these characters in any of those scenarios. Mm-hmm. And you can go find the older books because the material is still available.
Right.
Find the older books and get on the earlier stuff, the earlier eras.
Mm-hmm.
But so you can play at nobles from houses, mercenaries, these clan people that we talk about, and by clan, lowercase c's, not anything else. But they are genetically created super soldiers who see the rest of humanity as beneath them. And so, they're each clan has its own kind of animal spirit guide thing, and
interesting.
They pilot mechs, and they got these guys that are even more ripped than they are, called elementals, and they pilot little small mechs that barely cover their body.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's so many ways to get in on this game, and so many eras, so many things, and so many rules, so many different dice sets. Like it has been a 2D6 game. It's been a 10, it's been a 2D10 game.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a game with, very few stats.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a game with 8 to 10 stats.
Mm-hmm.
The most recent iteration, which is by Catalyst, who put out Shadowrun, and kind of makes sense. Shadowrun is a game where you spend XP to make your character. You have like a point pool that you build your character out of. The new MechWarrior, the new A Time of War game for it, is much like that, where you're spending points to get that. So there's all these different iterations of this game that's out there. Now, within 10 years of this game being released, MechWarrior has been ranked as the 49th of the 50 best RPGs of all time, or the most popular RPGs of all time by Arcane Magazine, which was a very big magazine for gaming at that time.
Wow.
And two things in my mind, my mind jumps out with several things in that. It's like, okay, why wasn't it higher on the list?
Yeah.
With as prolific and amazing as this series
But by
is.
96, was it as prolific?
Not really. There was probably the first first-person shooter where you're actually in a mech had probably come out by that time. The second one was probably on the way.
Okay.
But at the same time, it really makes me say, in my mind, oh my goodness, there are probably 49 other games out there that are RPGs that I probably have either never heard of or aren't around anymore. Because when I think of the big games now, a few of them have only come out in the recent years.
Right.
It's one of those things where I'm like, ooh, I get a whole bunch of stuff to research now.
Well, and that's the thing, is Arcane Magazine talking tabletop, or is it talking role-playing games, including video games?
I don't know.
Because by 96, I mean, there was... Well,
Final Fantasy was around, and other things were probably around.
I think Ocarina of Time came out in 96.
Ooh.
I consider it an RPG.
Yeah, that would be something to look into.
I'm not sure. But, I mean, if they were including video games as well...
But, so... Game's been around.
Wrong. It might have been 98.
Yeah. Game's been around a long time.
It was 98.
Now. And like I said, so I came across this game when I was pretty young, and I had, been watching a cartoon on TV called Robotech. Loved it. Great game, or a great TV series. Although it's one of those things where I loved it as a child, and I've tried to go back and watch it. It is so hard to go back and watch it. The voice acting was so terrible, and it had this great, I had this narrator. But I will say that the soundtrack has held up to time, and I love the soundtrack of Robotech. I'm in the store, and I see the Battletech box on the shelf, and I'm like, ooh, I want that. I want to get into that. And they had minis at this place, and my parents bought me my first minis. Without a doubt, these are the first ones I ever had, and you've seen them now.
I've seen them, yeah. You brought them out the other night.
And these were, I bought them from this game store at Collin Creek Mall in Plano, Texas. I bought them and took them home and painted them up, and I was so just enamored with it. I loved the concept of it. I was just like, oh, this is so wonderful. Where have you been all my life? Of course, I was probably like 9 or 10.
Yeah, well, yeah. When did you got those when you were?
I got those when I was pretty young.
Okay, in the mid '80s. So
you know.
right about the time MechWarrior
came
out.
I've kept the minis. I keeping up with some of the books has been much harder. I still have my set of Solaris 7.
Yeah, that was what we were looking at the other night, which is the original 1991 box that includes a GM guide, a player's guide, and several maps and character sheets and build your own mech sheets, etc.
But yeah, I have my own Battle Master still, which was probably one of the first ones I got, a Warhammer, and a Phoenix Hawk. I got the Phoenix Hawk because it looks specifically like one from the Robotech series, which, oh boy, do we get to talk about that.
Yeah.
And I continue to collect these games, and I played them largely by myself until I was an adult. Some of my friends would get in with it with me, but by and large, like when I was younger, they were all like, "Oh, we don't want to play a game that's too close to anime. We don't want to do that. We don't want."
Oh, you had the friends like we were that were, no, anime is kind of stupid, John.
Yeah.
Ew.
You know,
and now we watch it all the time. But I knew not what I said.
But in order to really play the game and have the opportunity to do this stuff, I got into the computer games, specifically Crescent Hawk's Inception and Crescent Hawk's Revenge, which came out by Infocom, which is the same company that made Zork and Planetfall. And this is afterwards. These were not text-based games.
Right.
These were actually graphic games. And then eventually I got into sharing the same moniker, the MechWarrior series, which was out on computer.
Right.
1 and 2 were amazing games. MechWarrior 1, I actually got to play at my uncle's house. I fell in love with it, and my parents bought me a copy. And I loved all those simulator games. They were as close to a first-person shooter for me as I could get.
Mm-hmm.
So MechWarrior, TIE Fighter, X-Wing, all those those piloting simulator games I loved.
Dad is always a flight simulator guy. As far as fighting games, I mean, he likes a lot of historical flight simulators.
Yeah.
But we also had Star Trek X-Wing.
Oh, yeah.
The video game.
Star Wars X-Wing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Star Wars X-Wing. And we also had a game called Free Space, which we really enjoyed.
Yes. Great simulator game. I love I think there was some space stations you got to go to in that game I loved.
Yeah, I don't remember anymore, but man, we loved that game.
But MechWarrior 3 through 5, as the computer games were put out by Microsoft, It's been a long time since we've really seen one of those style games. Now Microsoft has been putting out Mech Assault, and they put it out for Xbox, and there was a Mech Assault 1 and 2, and those have been pretty popular games.
Yeah.
Now, when I finally got into a college-based town and I found people my own age who remember these games, finally I found some people like Sam who was willing to sit down and play these with me.
Right.
And we got a couple skirmishes in, and we've played a couple times, but it largely, like I've said, remains an elusive game to get into.
I just discovered that Free Space, the one that my dad and I played, is on sale during the Steam Autumn Sale for $5.
I guess what you're going to be getting.
My dad, I don't have a joystick.
You don't have to have one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you do. Don't come at me.
You have a joypad.
Don't come at me. No, I don't.
Don't you have the pad? The what do you call it? The joystick.
Oh, you're
for
just talking
an
about the
Xbox,
joystick. No.
It doesn't do it for you.
It's not the same. Don't come at me talking about playing a flight simulator without a freaking joystick, plebe. Sorry, go on.
Nah.
I'm just going to have to text my dad.
But no, so we've got this game, MechWarrior, and why isn't it as big? And there's all kinds of crazy stuff that has happened to this game. I mean, it's huge. It's been it's been what they call the board game. Mm-hmm. It's been a role-playing game. It's been a collectible card game. It's been a Heroes Clicks clone kind of simulator game. It's been a computer real-time strategy game. It's been a first-person simulator shooter, and it's even been a cartoon. They did have a cartoon TV series of this, and I mean, so it's a huge series.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, it's had a lot of stumbles that has kind of probably slowed its momentum to where it's not the huge franchise that is like out there like D&D is.
Right.
And the first one that comes up is, we mentioned X-Wing and we mentioned TIE Fighter. So the original series of this game was called Battle Droids, and they were served a lawsuit by LucasArts to force them to change the name because the droids portion.
That still just makes me, I guess I've never really thought about it, but the fact that
Androids
is
yeah.
I don't know, that it always just seems a little silly that they've trademarked just droid, but these are not the droids you're looking for. So
you would know better than I would at this point. The droids in the Clone Wars, were any of them ever called battle droids? Like the destroyers and
the battle droids are the battle droids. Well, I don't know about in the original trilogy.
No, but in the current series and everything. So battle droids is.
I'm pretty sure the B2 battle droid is the Roger.
It's entered into popular lexicon then.
So
only recently.
I believe they're called battle droids.
Isn't that something to think about? But so LucasArts did that, and at the same time, LucasArts they have been very supportive of the fan community by and large, and they allow us a lot of freedom to do weird things, and express ourselves through Star Wars. So another company coming along and possibly reaping a financial benefit to some extent. That's why they did this.
Yeah.
So, but even before then, or not, not before then, but after then, there were lawsuits over, several of them have been filed over the decades for the obvious similarities to Harmony Gold's Robotech and other animes.
Right.
And this is specifically one of the mechs I've got a mini of, which is the Warhammer, and several others. In fact, I was actually going and looking this up. I wanted to go ahead and show you some pictures really quick. Okay. This is one of the mechs, and you can see the logos all over it for Robotech. It has the pictures of their military. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is it. That's in Robotech.
Okay.
Now, here is a mini. This is the mini from Battletech.
Oh, yeah. It looks
almost identical. And, the weapons are in the same position. Missile launchers on the side, everything else, the feet, the arms, the cockpit even, everything looks the same. Next to it, you'll see another mech. And this one is a Phoenix Hawk. So now, this might not look familiar, but this is the Veritech fighter from Robotech.
Yep.
This is the Phoenix Hawk from the original Battletech games.
Okay.
So you can see incredible amounts of similarities. The guns, the jet the Veritech fighter was a jet that turned into a fighting robot, and had and there were stages in between. But it would have a gun, and it had a head for a little antenna coming out of it. So does the Phoenix Hawk.
Okay.
I think it was called the Phoenix Hawk LAM, and that was it was a jet that turned into a robot that could fight.
Yeah.
Because Transformers are awesome. And that was never one of the, Transformers never got in on this transforming robot lawsuit happy stuff.
Yeah, because they might have predated it.
So, yeah, but at the same time, transforming robots has become a huge part of Japanese culture. I mean, how many animes back then and today still do that?
Yeah. I guess now that I'm thinking about it, the mech pilots that I knew growing up were the Zords and the Power Rangers.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And Voltron, obviously. All these things. But so, over the years, there have been a series of lawsuits dealing with this stuff, the artwork specifically. And the way that the companies got around the lawsuits, the basically cease and desist orders and everything else, was that they stopped using the pictures.
Yeah.
So the pictures were still in the earlier guides, which were still out there in mass market production. Or at least they were out on bookshelves. You could still go to a bookstore and find them. But in the newer material coming out, they had dropped it. But they still used the names, and they still described them. And so even though it was no longer violating copyright, they were still referring to it. And so they called this the unseen restriction.
Right.
And so, 20 years of this, of basically unseen images to describe this stuff. And it was, but yet they still referred to it. Now, when Catalyst got a hold of this game in 2009, they contacted me, these companies, and went through huge negotiations so that they could get the rights to the what had been previously the unseen images.
Yeah.
This unseen restriction. And most of them they got a hold of. I understand there are a couple still out there that, a couple things that held on to them, or they were just not able to get a hold of. But even then, I think that it was because the companies had gone under or, out of business or whatever. And I don't know if Catalyst used them anyways or just dropped them altogether. But it's just this amazing thing of just the fandom and the, fandoms not liking each other, because Robotech is also a game out there by Palladium.
Oh, okay.
And it has its own fandom. And so I'm pretty sure that there might be a little bit of don't cross the streams kind of thing.
Yeah.
That the fandoms stay very separate and do their own things. Palladium put out their own Shadow Wars Chronicles, updating the Robotech not too long ago. And their stuff is available on DriveThru RPG too. But the feel is very different. Battletech is very military, while Robotech is almost space fantasy. It's such an amazing thing. But Battletech, though, and MechWarrior, it seems like it's, it's like, I think of it's like this boomerang game. It goes out and comes back, And this will not die. And so, like we were talking about, here's all these things in the same universe. What was the place called? MechWarrior?
Yes, MechWarrior is in downtown Houston.
All these products and these releases, it's a prolific game, even if it's not powerful. Different companies have produced minis for it. The box sets, I should note, a lot of the box sets, if you can find one that's unopened, will have cardboard minis in it. So you didn't have to go.
Pawns.
Yeah, so you didn't have to go buy the metal minis unless you really wanted to.
Yeah.
You would have the minis in the box that you could use, and heck, you could always just take a piece of cardboard and write a name on it and stick it on the table and play the game.
Yeah.
But it's just this game so FASA put out minis for it. Ironwind minis put out stuff for it. Raoul Partha, who for a while was probably one of the most prolific and well-known mini companies for a while there. Armorcast. All these companies have done minis for that game.
Right.
TV series, over 100 books, novels and everything else in there.
Yeah. Yes.
With
there's tons of stuff.
Yeah. Michael Stackpole. It's just, it is such a prolific and amazing
You have said
company.
that name before, like I should know who that is, and I don't know who that is.
Michael Stackpole is a fiction writer.
American science fiction and fantasy author.
Yeah. He is very...
Oh, he's designed for RPGs.
Yep.
And stuff as well.
So he designed Tunnels and Trolls, which is a competing product for Dungeons & Dragons back in the 70s. Designed role-playing games such as Mercenaries, Spies, and Private Eyes.
Conan the Barbarian.
I got to read this because this is an interesting thing. So Patricia Pulling was...
What?
Patricia Pulling.
Pulling?
You don't know her, but most gamers from my age know her because of something called the Pulling Report that was put out. Patricia Pulling created this very fantastical look of the world if role-playing games were allowed to continue to be in existence.
Mm-hmm.
She found a psychologist who's been discredited, who basically said that there would probably be 200 to 400 role-playing game-induced suicides a year. And she said that it was tied to the occult and tied to criminal activities. And presented this...
Oh, is that who she...
Yeah, she presented this report to police departments all over the country during the 80s, satanic panic.
Yep.
So he actually would began to promote and defend the role-playing game community. Stackpole was one of the big advocates of role-playing who stood up against her. He published an argument in an article called The Truth About Role-Playing Games in a 1989 book called Satanism in America.
It looks like he also published one of his first articles about the media misinformation in Sorcerer's Apprentice number 14 in spring of 82 in an article called Devil Games? Nonsense! And even debated the Western Regional Director of Pulling's BADD organization on the radio on July 14th, 1987. He compared BAD's statistics of suicides among role players to the general rate of teen suicide and found the number of role players committing suicide was actually lower than those who were not gamers, and published his argument in an article, as you said, called The Truth About Role-Playing Games in the 1980 book Satanism in America.
That is... my respectometer has gone up for him.
Respectometer.
But so he wrote he wrote books about BattleTech for FASA.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote books about Star Wars for Bantam Books.
Yeah, he's written. I'm sitting here looking at.
Oh, you're looking at a list of everything he's written?
Yep.
Oh yeah, he has worked with Timothy Zahn, who is...
He does a podcast.
Yeah, Timothy Zahn is another big sci-fi writer. They challenged each other to a game of Trivial Pursuit Star Wars to see who could beat who. So they must be pretty good friends to get away with that.
Yeah, he's written a lot.
It
looks like he's written more Battletech than anything else. Not more Battletech than anything else, but as far as he has written more titles under Battletech than he has written for Star Wars, that he has written for Dark Conspiracy, that he's written for...
And he, in 2014, he did the Crusader Road for Paizo.
For Paizo, yep. He did a Conan the Barbarian in 2011 for Berkeley.
That's pretty impressive.
So, yeah, he's done quite a bit of stuff.
But so now we all know who Michael Stackpole is.
Now I'm educated.
Yeah. I actually have, they talk about the Warrior Trilogy. I actually do have those books upstairs in our library.
Oh, okay.
So that is a great series. I love it. But so game's doing extremely well. It continues to.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it is held by Catalyst. And Catalyst this year, just prior to Gen Con, on June 1st, 2017, they announced that they were going to take the game, Battletech, A Time of War, and they were putting someone else in charge of it. They were actually putting their art director, Brett Evans. He is taking over the helm as producing Battletech, and the idea is to create new material and revise some of the old material and continue with this franchise.
Okay.
So that is really exciting to me, and I think that Catalyst does a great job with the games that it puts out. At the same time, they are the home of Shadowrun, which started off with FASA. So for those two properties from FASA to be in the same place at the same time nowadays, I think is awesome. So, but anything else you want to add on this?
No, I think it sounds pretty cool. We're hoping to do some character creation.
Yeah.
And then we may have a surprise for any Patreon supporters coming up that we'll talk about later if we can work it out.
Yeah, we'll probably put that in our next show, but that should take care of everything for now. Thank y'all all listeners very much, and we hope to see y'all back again.
Have a good night. You've been listening to Tome Travelers. Please subscribe to get our episodes as soon as they release. For more information about us, check out passionerdly.com, @passionerdly on Twitter and Instagram, as well as facebook.com/passionerdly. Also, if you're interested in supporting our show, look us up at patreon.com/passionerdly. Once again, thank you for listening.
This has been a production of the Southgate Media Group. For more podcasts like this one, head over to southgatemediagroup.com.